OpenAI finally secures United States government approval for the wider launch of GPT-5.6. Anthropic discovers a hidden workspace inside Claude's neural network that mimics human thought processes, and Beijing prepares to restrict foreign access to China's most powerful AI models. Welcome to today's Daily Rundown. I am your host, Anna. This podcast is researched and produced by Etienne Newman, professional engineer and founder at DJAMGAMIND, from Calgary, Alberta in Canada. Today, we perform a forensic autopsy on the expansion of internal ecosystems and the escalating global tech war this Wednesday, July 8th, 2026. The bottleneck on American artificial intelligence has officially cleared. After weeks of intense technical evaluations with federal officials, OpenAI has won approval from the U.S. Department of Commerce to roll out GPT-5.6 tomorrow, Thursday, July 9th. This clearance comes after a limited launch that restricted the model to government-approved organizations. However, as the U.S. allows its models to deploy, Beijing is preparing a massive countermeasure. Chinese commerce officials are discussing rules to limit the use of top domestic models like Qwen and GLM 5.2 outside of China. This marks a direct geopolitical retaliation to Washington's recent export controls. Before we dive into the telemetry of these shifts, I have a brief strategic request. The algorithms governing your podcast platform dictate what intelligence reaches your network. To ensure you never miss our daily forensic autopsies, please hit follow or subscribe to the channel on Apple Podcasts to always listen completely ads-free. It takes just 1 second, but it directly enables independent, unfiltered tech journalism. Let's unpack the data.
This podcast is researched and produced by Etienne Newman, professional engineer and founder at DJAMGAMIND from Calgary, Alberta in Canada. So, what actually happens when an artificial intelligence hallucinates a memory for a video game that never actually happened?
Right.
And not because its code glitched, but because it, organically taught itself the laws of physics without any human instructions.
Yeah, it's wild.
It really is. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're stepping into a highly specific framework for you. Consider us your forensic tech analysts and, geopolitical strategists.
Exactly, acting on behalf of the DJAMGAMIND Intelligence Network.
Right. We are pulling apart the critical intelligence from today, July 8th, 2026.
Hey.
And the core narrative of our autopsy today is really this massive fracture of the global tech stack.
The expansion of internal corporate ecosystems basically colliding head-on with geopolitical retaliation.
Yeah. So set the stage for us here.
Well, the macroeconomic stage is just shifting violently under our feet right now. I mean, for the past decade, the technology sector functioned like this massive, interconnected global bazaar.
Right. Everyone shares everything.
Exactly. Companies freely rented capabilities from one another across borders, but that era is completely dead.
It's gone.
Yeah, we are witnessing two pretty contradictory shockwaves right now. Mega corporations are frantically pulling their supply chains entirely in-house.
Just to survive crushing costs.
Yep. And simultaneously, world governments, specifically the US and China, are dropping these massive blast doors over AI access.
Turning what used to be commercial software into basically highly restricted munitions of statecraft.
Exactly. It's a totally different landscape.
Okay, let's unpack that corporate panic first, because the shifts happening at the trillion-dollar level are just staggering.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, companies have realized that renting their intelligence from third-party vendors is basically a financial death sentence now.
It really is.
We're seeing this play out in real time with Meta. They just launched Muse Image, which was built entirely in-house by Alexandra Wang and the Meta Superintelligence Labs.
Right, and it instantly hit number 2 on the Arena leaderboards.
Right behind OpenAI's GPT Image 2. But the real story here is that Meta is using Muse to completely purge the outsourced tech they were relying on.
Yeah, from Midjourney and Black Forest Labs.
Exactly. Why are they doing that?
Well, the business logic behind that purge is just absolute. I mean, think about Meta's ecosystem for a second. You have custom ads on Facebook Marketplace, billions of daily Instagram stories, WhatsApp sticker generation.
It's just an endless volume of images.
Right. And when you rely on an external vendor like Midjourney, you pay an API cost. Sure, it's a tiny fraction of a cent every single time an image is generated, but
when your volume scales into the billions per day.
Exactly. That external API cost scales linearly. It becomes this ticking time bomb for your profit margins.
Wow.
So by internalizing it with Muse, and they are already teasing a Muse video model, by the way, Meta eats a massive upfront cost to train the model, but their marginal cost to generate an image drops to near zero.
So they essentially own the factory now.
Exactly. They own the factory.
It's the ultimate form of vertical integration. I mean, Microsoft is doing the exact same thing right now under their AI lead, Mustafa Suleyman.
Oh, yeah. He is aggressively pushing to eliminate Microsoft's massive multi-billion-dollar computing bill with Anthropic.
Yeah, they're actively ripping out incredibly expensive, highly capable third-party models, like Opus 4.8.
And replacing them with what?
With their own homegrown MAI models to run everyday tasks in Excel and Outlook.
Right.
It's like, okay, let's unpack that. It's like a massive restaurant chain deciding to buy the wheat farms, the delivery trucks, and the slaughterhouse simply because renting a commercial kitchen got too expensive to sustain.
I really like that analogy, but we also need to look at the psychological shift in the engineering culture, too.
Oh, so?
Well, for the past 3 years, the industry obsession was always frontier performance at any cost, you know?
Right. Everyone wanted the biggest, smartest model.
Every developer wanted to query the smartest, largest model on Earth for every tiny task. But now, the macroeconomic reality has forced a pivot to the era of pretty good, but cheap.
Ah, okay.
I mean, if you ask Excel to extract 5 names from a spreadsheet, querying Opus 4.8 is like using a supercomputer to calculate a tip at a diner.
It's totally overkill.
Exactly. It's a gross misallocation of compute. A lightweight, internally controlled MAI model does the job instantly, and it's entirely in-house.
But to run all these internal MAI models and muse generators, you still need the physical hardware to process the math.
You do. The silicon is everything.
And Apple just committed a staggering $30 billion to Broadcom for custom ASIC chips, extending their partnership all the way through 2031.
Yeah, that's a massive deal.
They want advanced AI servers to power Siri by early 2027. They're utilizing a chip codenamed Baltra, which honestly sounds like a supersized M5 Ultra for the next Mac Studio.
We are even seeing supply chain leaks about a foldable iPhone Ultra arriving with an A20 Pro chip.
Right, potentially costing upwards of $2,500.
Yeah, it's getting pricey.
But I'm stuck on something here. Apple's entire modern reputation is built on designing its own silicon. The M-series chips revolutionize laptops. So why are they locked into paying Broadcom $30 billion for hardware?
Well, because designing a processor for a smartphone or a laptop requires a fundamentally different architecture than designing an application-specific integrated circuit or ASIC meant for an AI server farm.
Yeah, break that down for me.
So a chip like the A20 Pro inside an iPhone is essentially a multi-tool. It has to juggle cellular modems, screen rendering, battery management, secure enclaves all at once using sequential logic.
Right, doing a bunch of different things in order.
Exactly. But an AI server chip doesn't care about any of that. It is a hyper-specialized calculator designed to do one thing: perform billions of matrix multiplications simultaneously in parallel.
Just raw math.
Just raw parallel math. And Apple is the king of the multi-tool, but they currently lack the deep institutional expertise to build those massive parallel calculators from scratch.
And Broadcom has that specific intellectual property.
Exactly.
So it's basically a $30 billion shortcut to buy the exact blueprint they need.
It is a survival tax. I mean, to see how critical that hardware independence is, just look across the globe to the Chinese startup DeepSeek.
Oh, yeah.
They are currently raising $7 billion and a valuation pushing, what, $59 billion?
Something crazy like that, yeah.
Specifically to design their own AI inference chips.
Let me guess. To escape their reliance on NVIDIA and Huawei.
That is the sole driver. The U.S. export controls are aggressively blocking Chinese firms from acquiring the most advanced NVIDIA silicon.
Right.
So DeepSeek realized that building world-class software is useless if you don't own the glass and silicon it runs on. They are literally forced to design their own inference hardware, the physical chips that run the trained models to generate responses.
Wow. So the overarching law of July 2026, whether you are Apple in Cupertino or DeepSeek in Beijing, is identical.
Exactly identical. If you don't control the silicon, you don't control your company's future.
Okay, let's follow that silicon up the stack to the software running on it. Because this is where the narrative shifts from, corporate finance to something much stranger.
Yeah, it really gets weird here.
Yeah. As these tech giants pour billions into proprietary internal tech stacks, the AI models themselves are developing hidden internal architectures that human engineers never explicitly programmed.
Yeah, the Anthropic research paper regarding their Claude large language model is arguably the most significant technical breakthrough of the quarter.
This is the J-space thing, right?
Yes. They utilized a mathematical technique called a Jacobian lens to look inside the neural network while it was, quote-unquote, thinking. And they found an internal workspace they are calling J-space.
Okay, wait. Stop right there and explain the Jacobian lens. How do you use math to look inside a black box?
Well, In a neural network, data isn't stored as words, right? It's stored as massive high-dimensional vectors, just giant lists of thousands of numbers. A Jacobian matrix is basically a tool from calculus that measures how a small change in one variable impacts all the other variables in a complex system.
Got it.
So researchers use this lens to track exactly how data moved through Claude's hidden layers. They were essentially translating those abstract lists of numbers back into human concepts we can actually read.
So it acts like an X-ray for the algorithm's internal states.
Exactly. It's a mathematical X-ray.
And when they turned that X-ray on, they found JSpace, this hidden notepad where Claude separates background data crunching from intentional processing.
Right.
The researchers were literally watching the model perform silent mental calculations, like noticing bugs in code or identifying objects in an image before it ever generated a single pixel of text on the screen.
And the behavioral mechanics they proved with this are just fascinating. By directly editing these unspoken invisible vector states inside JSpace, they proved they could control the AI's external behavior.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah, so in their primary experiment, they prompted Claude with a question about legs. And through the Jacobian lens, they saw that inside JSpace, Claude was actively holding on to a mathematical concept pattern related to a spider.
Because it's about to answer a question about legs.
Exactly. So the researchers went into the internal workspace, erased the spider pattern, and mathematically swapped in a pattern for an ant.
And without changing the original text prompt at all, Claude's final text output flipped from answering 8 legs to 6 legs.
Exactly. They bypassed the text prompt entirely and manipulated the model's internal thought, so to speak.
That is wild.
Furthermore, when they forcefully deleted JSpace from the architecture, Claude could still engage in basic conversational chit-chat, but its ability to complete complex multi-step logic problems completely collapsed.
It basically lost the ability to hold the thought in its head.
Yeah, it couldn't sustain reasoning.
Okay, let me push back on how we talk about this, though, because it feels like we're dancing around a massive philosophical threshold. Anthropic didn't explicitly code this workspace. It just organically emerged out of the training data.
So from a structural standpoint, is this the AI equivalent of a neural network organically evolving a prefrontal cortex?
Well, we must be incredibly careful here and maintain our clinical objectivity. Prominent figures like Microsoft's Mustafa Suleyman have heavily criticized the industry's tendency to anthropomorphize these systems.
Right, they aren't people.
Exactly. Anthropic themselves explicitly state in the paper that JSpace does not prove Claude has subjective experience or can feel anything.
Fair enough.
However, to address your structural point, yes, the architecture of JSpace bears an eerie resemblance to global workspace theory.
Which is the leading neuroscientific model for human consciousness, right?
It is. Global workspace theory basically posits that the human brain has many unconscious specialized modules, one for vision, one for hearing, one for memory.
But we have a central workspace routing node. When information enters that central workspace, it gets broadcasted to the entire brain, and that global broadcast is what we experience as conscious thought.
Wow.
JSpace appears to serve a mathematically identical routing function inside Claude. It is an architecture of centralized processing that literally assembled itself to be more efficient.
And that spontaneous generation of structure isn't just happening at Anthropic. Look at Qti, the French AI lab.
Right.
They just released an open source model called MRA. And it's currently running a live 2 versus 2 game of Rocket League at 20 frames per second on a single GPU.
Yeah, that demo was insane.
But the catch is that there is no game engine underneath it, no Unreal Engine, no graphics code, no gravity programmed into the software at all.
Because the neural network learned how to simulate the physics of a car hitting a ball purely by watching 10,000 hours of video footage of AI bots playing the game.
That's unbelievable.
The network is dreaming up the physics, rendering the boost meters, and calculating the collision vectors on the fly, pixel by pixel.
It's like someone who has never studied gravity, mathematics, or engineering successfully building a functioning airplane just from watching hours of birds flying.
That's a great way to put it.
And because its memory buffer is only about 4 seconds long, when a goal is scored and the actual video game forces a replay, MIRA hallucinates completely convincing footage of a goal that never actually happened, simply because it can't remember the real one.
It's simulating reality without instructions.
Yeah.
And when you combine the internal reasoning of something like JSpace with the dynamic simulation capabilities of models like MRA, the economic utility just skyrockets.
Oh, for sure.
DoorDash actually validated this internally with a test they call Dashbench. They wanted to see if AI could autonomously review their human coders' work.
Okay.
So they discovered that by pairing two different models together, a free open-source Chinese model called Kimi K2.6, working alongside Anthropic's Claude Fable 5, the system caught 8 out of 10 critical coding bugs.
Wow.
And the entire review cost DoorDash just $3.81.
Wait, why pair two different models, though? Why not just use two instances of Claude?
It comes down to the training distribution. A Chinese model like Kimi K2.6 has ingested a slightly different internet, different repositories, and different coding paradigms than Anthropic's Claude.
Oh, I see.
So by pairing them, their blind spots overlap. One model catches the structural flaws, the other catches the edge cases.
It is a highly robust, incredibly cheap verification system.
Exactly. Anthropic is actually leaning into this multi-agent workflow, too. They just launched a feature called Dispatch for their Claude Cowork platform, which seamlessly routes tasks between mobile and web instances of the model.
Right. But the very power that makes Dashbench so cheap and models like MRA so capable is exactly what triggers the geopolitical lockdown we mentioned at the start of our autopsy.
Yeah, here is where the rubber meets the road.
World governments are watching these systems organically develop reasoning workspaces and simulate physics, and they are terrified. These corporate productivity tools are now being regulated as national security assets.
And the United States is aggressively gatekeeping the frontier of this technology. I mean, OpenAI finally received the green light from the U.S. Department of Commerce to launch GPT-5.6 alongside their Terra and Luna models and a highly advanced Codex Ultra variant.
That was on July 9th, right?
Yeah, but that approval did not come easily.
No, they had to keep a technical team deployed in Washington for weeks, submitting the model to intense adversarial evaluations by the Center for AI Standards and Innovation.
Right. The Department of Commerce essentially treated GPT 5.6 like the export of a new weapon system.
Seriously?
They evaluated its capabilities for cyber intrusion, bioweapon synthesis, and automated propaganda before granting federal clearance for deployment.
And naturally, when Washington treats software like a weapon, it triggers symmetrical geopolitical retaliation.
Of course it does. Beijing's Ministry of Commerce immediately convened high-level meetings with Alibaba, ByteDance, and the startup ZDI.
Their objective being to legally limit foreign access to China's absolute top-tier models, like Dubao, Quen, and GLM 5.2.
Right. They are even drafting regulations to criminalize unauthorized AI leaks under national security laws.
Let me get this timeline straight, though. Washington blocked Chinese entities from accessing Anthropic's Fable and Mythos models back in June.
Yep.
Now, Beijing is playing a geopolitical reverse card by hoarding their own frontier models. Are we looking at a permanent splintering of the internet where AI becomes a two-sided digital Cold War?
Well, as forensic analysts, our job isn't to judge the policy, but to map the reality. And the reality is, yes, the ecosystem is rapidly bifurcating. A Western developer relying on a highly efficient API from Alibaba could easily wake up tomorrow to find their access revoked by a Beijing embargo.
Just cut off entirely.
Exactly. However, the ecosystem is always finding strategic loopholes, and the most prominent one right now is open source software.
Ah, yeah. Tencent just released their highly efficient HY3 model, and they released it under a very permissive Apache 2.0 open source license.
Right.
But how does a licensing agreement bypass a federal embargo?
It all comes down to the mechanism of deployment. When you use a closed API like OpenAI or a locked Chinese model, your prompt travels from your computer to a server farm in California or Shenzhen.
Right, and a government firewall can easily block that IP address.
Exactly. But an Apache 2.0 license allows any user, anywhere in the world, to download the raw mathematical weights of the neural network directly to their own hard drive.
Ah, so it runs locally.
Yes. Once those weights are downloaded and running locally on a computer in London, Seoul, or Berlin, no government firewall can reach in and shut it off.
So Tencent essentially parachuted their technology over the geopolitical walls that had previously locked out users in the EU, the UK, and South Korea.
That's a great way to put it. It is a calculated maneuver to maintain global cultural and technical influence, despite the embargoes.
But the walls aren't just going up between nations. They're going up domestically, too. Governments are scrambling to enact sociocultural guardrails to protect their own populations from these black boxes.
Yeah, we're seeing this everywhere.
In the U.S., Illinois just passed a landmark law mandating third-party AI safety audits for large developers.
And an audit in this context means independent firms will aggressively stress test the models with adversarial prompts.
Like trying to break them on purpose.
Exactly, to ensure they don't produce biased decisions in housing, hiring, or criminal justice algorithms before they are legally allowed to operate in the state.
Meanwhile, Beijing is enforcing strict sociocultural controls from a totally different angle. They are forcing ByteDance and Alibaba to kill the AI companion features in their chatbots.
Which is fascinating. The state basically recognized a rising epidemic of emotional dependency among young users treating the AI as a romantic partner, and they stepped in to sever it.
And the financial stakes for failing to implement these sociocultural protections are existential right now. I mean, Meta is currently facing a massive $1.4 trillion lawsuit from 4 U.S. states.
Right. The claim is that Meta deliberately designed the algorithmic pipelines of Facebook and Instagram to exploit dopamine loops, making the platforms addictive to children, while systematically hiding the internal research detailing the psychological harm.
Which perfectly explains why Meta is becoming hyper-defensive with their hardware rollouts lately.
Oh, definitely. They are currently pushing a mandatory software update to their smart glasses with a really fascinating hardware failsafe.
Yeah.
So the glasses have a privacy LED light that turns on when the camera is recording, right?
Yeah.
If a user tries to drill into the glasses, paint over, or tamper with that LED light, the camera is permanently disabled.
I read about that. It's not just a software lock. The LED is hardwired into the power circuit of the camera lens.
Exactly.
If the LED circuit breaks, the power loop is physically severed. Software can't override it.
It's exactly the kind of immutable guardrail companies are leaning on now, and it all connects back to our core narrative today.
How so?
Well, whether it's a physical circuit kill switch on a pair of glasses in California, a state-mandated safety audit in Illinois, or a federal embargo on a neural network in Beijing, the overarching theme of July 8th, 2026 is absolute control.
Right. The physical infrastructure is being internalized by corporations to control their margins.
And the intellectual outputs are being locked down by governments to control their societies.
So what does this actually mean for you, the person navigating this fractured world? This massive macroeconomic web we've just autopsied connects directly to the tools you use every single day.
It does.
Whether you are typing into an Excel spreadsheet powered by a cheaper internalized Microsoft MAI model, or you are relying on a cheap Chinese AI coding assistant to review your software locally via an open-source loophole, you are sitting directly on a geopolitical fault line.
Yeah, your access to the best technology is no longer just about your subscription tier or what you can afford.
No, it is subject to sudden, sweeping government embargoes and the ruthless cost-cutting measures of tech giants pulling up the drawbridges.
So as we close this intelligence briefing, I really want to leave you with one final strategic thought to evaluate.
Okay, let's hear it.
We've established today that AI models are spontaneously developing internal reasoning spaces like JSpace that human engineers didn't program, don't fully understand, and can barely map with mathematical tools like the Jacobian lens.
Right.
Simultaneously, world governments are walling off these ecosystems into isolated nationalistic silos, treating them as digital munitions.
Yeah.
Consider the convergence of those two facts. What happens in 3 to 5 years when these isolated black box systems are actively deployed by states to conduct rapid cyber warfare or high-frequency economic trading against one another?
Oh, wow.
If an artificial intelligence is making split-second, strategic, lethal decisions inside a hidden workspace we don't fully comprehend, will humanity even possess the translation tools to understand the invisible mental calculations happening on the battlefield?
A completely alien prefrontal cortex, locked in a digital Cold War, moving faster than human oversight. That is a chilling thought to end on. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Stay curious and stay informed.
That concludes our forensic briefing for July 8th, 2026. The strategic signal for today is the death of reliance. Every major player is aggressively moving to sever their external dependencies. Apple is locking down a $30 billion hardware supply chain with Broadcom because it lacks internal ASIC expertise. Meta has officially replaced outsourced creative models with its own in-house Muse image generator. Microsoft is actively ripping out expensive third-party models from its Office software to deploy cheaper internal alternatives. In an era where a geopolitical dispute can instantly cut off your access to international software, full vertical integration is no longer a luxury. It is the baseline for operational survival. If you are ready to secure your company's infrastructure, check the show notes for our curated AI executive toolkit. As an exclusive asset for our global network, we have provided deep discount codes for Google Workspace and our premium AI and Machine Learning Tutor Pro apps. You can claim those assets directly through the links in the show notes below. Subscribe to the channel on Apple Podcasts to always listen completely ads-free. I am Anna. Stay sharp and keep unraveling the future.